The chimneys of Topkapi Palace pierce the Istanbul skyline like stone sentinels guarding a forgotten era. They stand rigid and tall, etched against the morning haze that clings to the Bosphorus. Each stack is a monolith of masonry, thick with the soot of centuries and the memory of empires. From a distance, they appear motionless, yet they define the geometry of the city. The wind pulls across the tile roofs, whistling through the narrow gaps between the chimneys. There is no movement on the ramparts, only the slow crawl of shadows shifting as the sun climbs higher. This is the summit of the peninsula, where the weight of history presses down on the very stones of the palace walls. The city below wakes in a rhythmic pulse of ferry whistles and distant calls. But up here, the air is still. It feels heavy, charged with the echoes of commands that once moved armies and the silent labor of thousands. The skyline shifts, turning from gray to deep amber, highlighting the ancient silhouette that has watched the world change for 500 years. The palace holds its breath, waiting for the fires to be lit once again. Beneath those stone stacks, the silence shatters. 10 separate kitchen buildings pulse with a frantic, rhythmic life. It is a labyrinth of iron, soot, and sweat. Every structure functions as a distinct engine of production. Steam hisses from massive copper cauldrons, curling toward vaulted ceilings that have been blackened by generations of open flame. Dozens of laborers move in tight, practiced patterns, their hands blurred by speed as they chop, stir, and stoke the hungry fires. The air is thick with the scent of roasting meat, heavy spices, and the sharp bite of wood smoke that clings to the walls. There is no wasted movement here. Every step is calculated, every heavy lid lifted with precise timing to ensure the heat remains constant. The floor vibrates under the weight of thousands of ceramic bowls being moved in unison. It is a deafening, organized chaos where the sheer volume of ingredients, sacks of grain, mounds of onions, and mountains of fresh produce is processed to sustain the entire palace. This is not just a room for cooking. It is the beating heart of the empire, where the raw resources of a continent are transformed into the daily requirements of power. Order governs this chaos. While the fires roar, every hand moves according to a strict, invisible map of authority. The workers never cross the lines drawn by tradition. At the apex of this command structure stands the killer Sabasi. When he walks the stone aisles, the frantic pace does not stop, but it changes. The rhythm shifts from raw labor to focused precision. He stops beside a row of copper vessels, his eyes scanning the consistency of a reduction. Beside him, the Haz Asilar, the elite head chefs, wait in silence. They do not speak. They observe his reaction to the scent and the texture of the bubbling contents. A single nod from the Killer Sabasi dictates the entire menu for the Sultan. If the heat is too high, or the spice balance leans too far, the entire batch is discarded without hesitation. The chefs acknowledge his judgment with a quick, sharp motion of the head, immediately returning to their stations to adjust their technique. Authority here is absolute, measured in grams, seconds, and the unwavering discipline of the kitchen line. Every dish serves as a report of competence. To fail the Killer Sabasi is to fail the Sultan, and the tension of that responsibility hangs heavier in the room than the thick, aromatic steam. Far from the roaring heat of the main ovens, the Helvehane operates in a different tempo. Here, the air holds a heavy, sweet humidity that clings to the skin. The artisans focus on the transformation of raw sugar and harvested nuts into complex, golden confections. They stand over shallow, wide-rimmed basins, driving long wooden paddles through thick, bubbling honey. The motion is slow, steady, and hypnotic. They watch the viscosity, waiting for the precise moment the mixture darkens to a deep, translucent amber. They toss in handfuls of roasted pistachios and walnuts, watching as the nuts are swallowed by the liquid gold. As the paste thickens, the artisans exert their full weight to keep the mass moving, ensuring the heat is distributed evenly without burning the delicate sugars. When the consistency is perfect, they pour the molten mixture onto cold marble slabs. The paste spreads in a thick, slow wave, rippling with the texture of embedded nuts. They use metal blades to score the surface into perfect squares, while the confection is still warm. It is a labor of endurance and patience, turning simple ingredients into a display of shimmering, edible craftsmanship that defines the palace's dedication to the finer arts of the table. The scale shifts instantly as one leaves the sugar rooms for the main kitchens. Here, the challenge is not just precision, but volume. Thousands of mouths depend on the efficiency of this engine. A heavy wooden cart rumbles through the arched doorway, laden with sacks of grain and crates of fresh produce. The crew moves with the synchronization of a well-oiled machine, unloading tons of supplies before the morning sun hits its peak. They haul massive, iron-bound cauldrons to the hearths, each one large enough to submerge a man. Water flows from stone conduits, filling the vessels as fires are stoked to roaring life. Every action is calculated to prevent waste. Storage shelves line the walls, stacked floor to ceiling with preserved meats and dried legumes, a physical inventory of the Empire's reach. A head steward marks a ledger, ticking off the arrival of crates from distant provinces. The noise of the kitchen is a constant, low-frequency vibration, the sound of thousands of meals being prepared simultaneously. It is a logistical feat of staggering proportions, turning the raw harvest of a continent into the daily sustenance of the palace. There is no room for error when the command originates from the Sultan himself, and the entire facility operates as a single, relentless pulse of labor. Beyond the mass production, the palace kitchens reserved space for the legendary. Consider the Imam Bayildi, a dish that shifted from a simple recipe to a cultural touchstone. It begins with the selection of firm, dark-skinned eggplants. The chefs slice them open, creating a pocket that is then seared in an abundance of olive oil until the flesh turns buttery and translucent. They fill the cavity with a slow-cooked mixture of onions, garlic, and tomatoes, allowing the liquids to meld into a rich, savory jam. As the dish braises, the kitchen air fills with the scent of caramelized vegetables and herbs. The final result is served warm, the eggplant so soft it yields to the slightest pressure of a fork. Tradition tells of an imam, a man of great discipline, who tasted this specific preparation for the first time. The combination of the oil, the sweetness of the onions, and the tender vegetable was so potent that he reportedly fainted dead away, overcome by the sheer pleasure of the meal. He regained his senses only to demand the recipe, cementing the name Imam Bayildi, or the Imam Fainted, into the culinary history of the empire. It remains a testament to how a single, well-executed dish can command as much reverence as any imperial decree. If the Imam Bayildi was a moment of delight, the Hunkar Bagendi was a demand for perfection. This dish was forged in the shadow of Sultan Murad IV, a ruler whose favor shifted like the wind. The kitchen staff operated under a different set of rules when the order came from the royal quarters. Failure was not an option. The head chefs demanded the finest eggplant, selecting only those with a specific weight and sheen. They roasted the vegetables directly over open hardwood embers, turning them until the skin blackened and the flesh inside collapsed into a smoky, silk-like puree. The air in the kitchen grew heavy with the smell of charred wood and roasting nightshades. While the puree simmered, they prepared the meat, slow braising tender lamb until it shredded under the weight of a spoon. Layering the two was a test of timing and temperature. The puree had to hold its heat, and the lamb had to remain succulent, never dry. When presented, the dish had to be flawless, a balance of smoke and richness that met the Sultan's exacting standards. It was more than a meal. It was a political maneuver served on a plate. The chefs worked in silence, their eyes fixed on the final assembly, knowing that the Sultan's satisfaction determined the fate of the entire kitchen hierarchy for the coming season. While royal demands drove the palace, another culinary pillar required only stamina and time. The keshkek, a ceremonial porridge of pounded wheat and meat, remains the antithesis of the Sultan's quick-fire dishes. It begins in massive copper cauldrons where wheat soaks until it swells to twice its size. Then, the labor starts. Artisans grip heavy, oversized wooden paddles, driving them into the thick mass with a rhythmic, bone-deep cadence. They do not stop. They stir for hours, pulling the grains against the heat of the fire until the wheat breaks down and the meat fibers dissolve into the starch. The sound is constant, a wet, heavy thudding that echoes through the courtyard. As the mixture cools, it thickens into a dense, glue-like paste that clings to the paddle. It is a grueling physical test, demanding precise timing to prevent the bottom from scorching against the copper. UNESCO now recognizes this process not just for its flavor, but for the endurance it requires. Every rotation of the paddle is a connection to the past, a mechanical repetition that strips away the pretenses of the court and leaves only the raw, ancient machinery of the kitchen. When the porridge is finally smooth, it carries the weight of 1,000 years of labor, stirred into existence by hands that know exactly when the transformation is complete. If the keshkek demanded raw strength, the production of Turkish delight required the precision of an apothecary. This confection began within the palace walls as a medicinal blend, designed to soothe throats and balance the humors. Artisans moved with calculated patience, heating sugar, cornstarch, and water in vast cauldrons until the mixture reached a precise, syrupy consistency. They stirred in rosewater, mastic, or crushed pistachios, watching for the exact moment the liquid thickened into a translucent, elastic gel. The change was physical and absolute. Once set, they poured the mass onto wooden boards, leaving it to cool until it turned firm yet yielding. They cut the sheets into uniform cubes, each one dusted in a fine layer of starch to prevent sticking. This was no longer just a remedy, it was a luxury. Traders sampled the boxes and carried them across the Mediterranean, through the Balkans, and into the courts of Europe. It moved from a niche palace preparation to an international icon, its sweetness becoming the signature of Ottoman reach. Every box that traveled abroad carried the weight of the empire, proving that while borders shifted and dynasties waned, the influence of these flavors remained fixed. The confection that started as a cure for the sick became a permanent fixture on the global stage, cementing the palace as the origin point for a worldwide craving. Istanbul did not just trade in goods. It operated as the world's primary culinary engine. The city sat at the mouth of a funnel, pulling the raw materials of 3 continents into its harbor. Ships docked daily, unloading sacks that carried the concentrated heat of Indian peppers, the pungent freshness of Balkan herbs, and the heavy, earthy depth of Arab aromatics. These ingredients did not stay separate. They collided in the kitchens of the capital, forcing a fusion of flavors that redefined the limits of local cooking. Traders tracked the movement of these shipments with obsessive precision, calculating the weight of every crate of cumin and every bale of dried spice. The air in the city changed with the seasons, shifting from the sharp, stinging scent of ground ginger to the floral, cooling notes of mint and parsley. It was a high-energy environment where the demand for exotic imports drove the pace of daily life. Merchants scrambled to secure the freshest arrivals, while chefs experimented with new balances, layering heat against freshness to suit the refined palates of the palace. The city functioned as a pressure cooker, compressing the vast distances of the spice routes into a single, localized experience. Every meal served in the capital became a map of the known world, a testament to the sheer force of trade that turned this port into the undisputed kitchen of the empire. The energy of the docks finds its final, permanent resting place inside the Spice Bazaar. This is not merely a market. It is a vault, built of stone, arched ceilings, and centuries of accumulated scent. Crossing the threshold, the roar of the city falls away, replaced by the heavy, sweet, and sharp perfume of 1,000 years of trade. Every stall here acts as a physical archive. Sacks of raw sumac sit beside pyramids of saffron, their colors bleeding into the dim light of the vaulted corridors. The air is thick, almost solid, carrying the distinct signatures of distant lands that once bowed to the Sultan. You can trace the geography of the empire simply by walking from one end of the hall to the other. There is a weight to the silence here, an intensity that demands attention. The walls have absorbed the whispers of merchants and the specific aromas of every spice that fueled the rise of the capital. It stands as a testament to endurance, a place where history is not read in books but is inhaled with every breath. To stand in the center is to feel the gravity of the past, a living legacy that remains unchanged even as the world outside shifts. It is the heart of the trade, the final destination for every cargo ship, and the silent keeper of the secrets that built an empire. History is not just preserved in archives. It is served on a plate at Sultan Namit Koftasisi. Stepping through the entrance, the first thing to greet you is the sharp, familiar scent of charcoal smoke. It is a direct, uncomplicated signal of a kitchen that has refused to change its rhythm since 1920. The air here does not hold the heavy, fragrant mysteries of the trade routes. It holds the immediate, visceral heat of the grill. You watch the hands of the cooks, moving with a practiced, repetitive motion that has survived decades of shifting borders and changing fashions. They place the meat onto the iron grates, the sound of the sizzle cutting through the low hum of the dining room. There are no complicated garnishes or modern reinterpretations here, just the raw, smoky flavor of a recipe that was perfected when the century was young. When the plate arrives, the steam carries the scent of simple, seasoned beef, charred to a precise crust that breaks under the slightest pressure. To eat here is to bypass the distance of time. You are not just consuming a meal, you are repeating the exact physical motion of thousands who sat in these same chairs over the last 100 years. It is a stubborn, delicious refusal to let the past fade into memory. Above the clamor of the spice bazaar, a narrow staircase leads to a different kind of quiet. You climb, the air thinning as you distance yourself from the ground-level chaos. At the summit, the space opens into Pandeli, a sanctuary that has held its post since 1901. Here, the world changes color. Every wall is wrapped in hand-painted tiles of deep, electric blue, reflecting the light in a way that makes the room feel submerged, cool, and detached from the heat of the city below. The transition is instantaneous. You leave the raw, gritty history of the trade routes and enter a space where history is polished, curated, and framed. Move toward the windows. The view pulls the entire skyline into the frame, a panorama of domes and minarets that seem to hover over the water. It is a vantage point that demands stillness. You are no longer navigating the streets. You are observing them from a height that turns the bustle into a slow, rhythmic dance. The tiles hum with the cool energy of 1,000 patterns, while the glass holds the golden light of the afternoon. This is the peak of the experience, where the aesthetic weight of the interior meets the vast, sprawling reality of Istanbul. The history here is not just something you taste, it is something you inhabit, suspended between the ancient stone and the endless, shimmering horizon. From the heights of the city, we descend into the quiet, meticulous laboratory of Ottoman. Here, the approach to history is not merely observational, but reconstructive. The walls are lined with aging, fragile manuscripts, their pages brittle and filled with the faded ink of imperial kitchen records. Chefs stand over these documents, tracing the instructions for dishes that have not been served in centuries. They do not guess, they decipher. They measure the exact ratio of spice to stock, testing the viscosity of long-forgotten sauces until the result matches the description left by the palace cooks. This is a process of trial and error, where a single missing ingredient can stall the work for weeks. You watch them weigh cloves and cardamom, grinding them into powders that have not seen the inside of a pot since the empire fell. When the lid is lifted, the steam carries a scent that feels both alien and strangely familiar. They are pulling flavor out of the archives, turning theoretical text into a tangible, steaming reality. By the time the dish hits the table, the gap between the present and the past has been closed. You are tasting a sequence of flavors that survived only because someone chose to read, to experiment, and to laboriously restore what time had nearly erased. It is history, verified by the palate. The empire is gone, its borders redrawn by time and maps, yet its pulse remains trapped in the copper pots and stone ovens of this city. You see it in the way the oil shimmers in a pan, in the precise balance of spices that have traveled these streets for half a millennium. The palace walls may no longer house a sultan, but the recipes serve as a living, breathing testament to a vanished world. Every bite is an act of preservation. The flavors did not fade away. They simply integrated into the daily rhythm of Istanbul, becoming the foundation of every meal served. It is a rare kind of persistence, where the intangible history of a dynasty is kept alive by the simple, repetitive movements of a cook. You have walked the path from the spice routes to the modern table, tracing the evolution of these ancient tastes. Now, the burden of history shifts to you. The kitchens are open, the fires are lit, and the past is waiting to be tasted. Whether you seek the smoky depth of an eggplant puree or the subtle sweetness of a medicinal confection, the heritage of the empire is not behind glass, it is on your plate. Istanbul remains the world's kitchen, and the invitation to taste this history is yours to accept. Look once more at the horizon. The minarets that define the skyline are only the final chapter in a much longer narrative. Beyond the reach of the Ottoman archives, deep beneath the pavement and the modern bustle, the city holds its breath in a different language. Before the Sultan, before the spice routes defined this trade, there was the iron heart of the Byzantine Empire, The stones here remember a different era of power, where gold mosaics caught the light and the flavors of the table were forged in a different crucible. We have traced the legacy of the palace, but we have only touched the surface of this soil. There are recipes buried deeper than we have dared to look, preserved in the ruins of a civilization that once stood as the center of the known world. The fires in the kitchens of Istanbul never truly go out. They simply shift to a different rhythm, waiting for us to uncover what came before. Pack your curiosity. Next time, we leave the familiar streets of the Ottoman era behind. We are traveling further back, descending through the layers of time to reclaim the lost, forgotten recipes of Byzantium. The history of the plate is far from finished,